Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to SJU. My name is Joe Starr. I'm joined by Danielle Radford and Eric Goldman. This morning, we wanted to take some time to talk about Chadwick Boseman, who, of course, is probably most well known for his role as a Black Panther in the MCU. Also, of course, played Jackie Robinson, James Brown in Get On Up in 2014. Mr. Boseman passed away this past Friday after a 4-year battle with colon cancer at the age of 43. Obviously, that's a horrific, far too young age to lose anyone. But especially just because Chadwick Boseman was such a kind of just an intense light in the past few years in pop culture. And I use the term pop culture not to minimize it all, but to provide sort of an example as to why it's important and why it matters. I think he really embodied that. And so we wanted to take some time today to just talk a little bit about his career, his impact, his legacy, what he meant to fans, what he meant to us. No real script or bullet points today, guys, just sort of some open conversation. So yeah, Danielle, Eric, I'd love to hear how you guys have sort of been feeling this week, because this was obviously very big, sort of stunning news.
Yeah, it took me a couple of days to really process it. Because it happened all at once, and his team, God bless his team, because they didn't want us to know, and we really didn't know. There were no leaks. Everything was handled the way that he wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. When we talk about people and when they pass away, it's very, when we talk about people, they're like 80, they're 90. It's like, man, that's a good life. Like, yeah, it's obviously very sad whenever someone passes away, but it's like, yeah, man, 80, 90 had, met their grandkids. Like, that's a full life. An actor of this caliber and this, I'm sorry, dude is important. Like he has embodied like these massive like all of these huge roles, but he's also like, he was the first time most Black kids really got to see like a huge, big budget Black superhero. And that cannot be overstated, the importance of that. People were, to take it back a couple of years, if you don't entirely remember how big the impact is, because sometimes obviously things have been happening and every day feels like 2 years now, but back in the several years ago, people were buying out movie theaters so that kids could go see this. Like, this was a huge cultural impact to everyone, but in particular the way that this hit the Black community. Like, I remember thinking like, man, what would it have been like if I would have had that when I was the kids' age now. There are kids now who have never grown up without there being a Black superhero that they can look up to. And that is monumental and awesome. And yes, of course, obviously there's Blade, there's been other ones, but on this level, like on an MCU, Superman level of everyone knows who this character is. And it's also appropriate for all ages. It's massive. And, the fact, and there's been lots of really good discussions in the disability communities about the fact that he did all of this while undergoing treatment for cancer, while bulking up, getting smaller, doing different roles, because it wasn't like that was the only thing that he was doing while he was acting, and in particular. And I know this is obviously like a cliche and a thing that people say, but like, you don't know what people are going through. You really, really don't. And I remember very distinctly when he tried to do that live, and Black Twitter, we make jokes. It's what we do. And a lot of people were calling him like crack Panther and all these things because he had very obviously lost weight. And then a lot of other people were like, well, it could be for a role. You don't know what's going on. Don't do this. And it was so like, he stopped the stream, like it was deleted. And there were rumors going around forever about that. And no, he was hiding that he had been, in treatment for cancer, which ultimately he wound up passing away from. And so it is just, obviously I'm so happy, and so I couldn't be happier that like, before, what a resume to leave if you're going to go young. What you know, getting to do this thing and be this huge, like, big light. And I'm gonna crack jokes, but like, you know, I have, in the same way that when you go into a Black relative's house, they have like their hall of Black Jesuses. I have my hall of Black superheroes. When you first walk into my home, those are my Black Jesuses, and you know, Black Panther is up there, and you know, that's going to be something that we have now forever. And what a way to be able to cement your legacy. And yeah, man, just be kind to people, because we think we know people because we see them perform, and we see them, you know, doing press and all of these other things. You don't know people. You don't know their inner struggle. Everyone is a universe. You know, we're all like separate people. We're not just like, you know, backups and background players to your own particular story. And I think that that's also like a good thing to remember. But yeah, man, I'm still really, really incredibly bummed about it, because he had so much more to go. I'm very pleased that most places and most outlets have been very cool about not being tacky about it, which I'm also grateful for, and just letting people have a chance to breathe and to mourn. But yeah, this is a huge blow, and it's devastating, but heck of a life, man. Like, really, really good life, and really good that he got to do this huge thing before he was taken from us.
Absolutely.
I just talked for a really long time.
No, very well said. You say what you need to say. Eric, I know that you sort of had to be, just because we chose to actually allow employees to have vacations this week. You know, we were pre-taped all week when this dropped, and obviously it's not about who's going to get out the gate ASAP with this, but you know, it is something that I think people want to be able to hear discussed, and we wanted to be able to discuss it. And obviously you sort of had to be our first line on this with the New Mutants review on Saturday. So I'd be curious to sort of see how you were feeling about it and your reaction to it when it happened. And
yeah, I'll repeat sort of quickly what I mentioned at the beginning of that New Mutants review, which was just the sort of surreal, strange nature of how I learned the news, which was sitting at a drive-in, looking at my phone about 10 to 15 minutes before New Mutants began, and not believing it, like thinking, that's a mistake, like that's not true. Obviously realizing, no, this is true, like, you know, reading, but the movie's about to begin, and just sort of that strange whiplash of trying to process something that seems so shocking and sudden to us. And then the fact that, you know, the trailers begin and it's a Black Widow trailer, and the movie itself is New Mutants. So it's like Marvel. And this guy who was part of that. And on one hand, it's like, you know, his life is not summed up by him being a superhero in a movie. But of course, it's bigger than that. And Danielle spoke to reasons for it. But also it's like, these movies are so huge. They become so much permeated into pop culture. And to think about how Black Panther itself was such an event, the biggest solo superhero movie ever. Black Panther made more than any Batman movie, Iron Man movie, Superman movie, Spider-Man movie. It was massive. And then last year, Avengers Endgame came out, and a lot of people mentioning that already one of the best theater experiences people have ever had, right, is the end of that movie. Spoilers, I think we all know the end of Avengers Endgame. But when everyone comes back and the roar of the crowd when you see T'Challa there, you know, it was such a huge moment. One of the biggest, you know, screams of delight and people being so excited in a night of many watching that movie. And just it, and that was a movie that more people, it was like the biggest movie ever. So it's insane to think about it in the context of that, but also because he was this amazing actor who was doing so much, had played several other roles. And again, I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but the fact that he played so many real life people that were so important and impactful, and that he became someone that you knew could bring that. Because, like, you know, these are, you know, he's playing Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall and James Brown. You need someone who can embody that charisma, hold the screen, and my God, was he that. So it's sort of crazy to think about. I think it's one of those things that really hits you so suddenly, that only happens once in a while, because we did not know he was sick. So it, you know, came out of nowhere for all of us. But I think it really shows the impact that he made in a short amount of time. I mean, he lived way too short a life, but also I think he was a star just for a few years. But man, did he leave a legacy in just those few years? You know, just a few films, really. But yeah, man, that's stuff people will be talking about and watching forever.
Yeah, sort of talking about that impact and the level of roles he was playing, and the type of roles he was playing. I was going back through over the weekend, and just watching his commencement speech, and some stories he's had told in interviews and stuff like that. And something that really stood out to me, was interesting to me, was his discussion of finding a purpose and not a job, which, holy shit, what a thing to say. And then sort of tying that to something I didn't realize, but what got him into theater and the arts was that he wrote a play about a basketball teammate that had been shot and killed. That, like, talk about purpose and not a job. Like, that's absolutely incredible. That someone had that kind of North Star so early, and was able to deliver on it as well as he did, and as with as much impact as he was able to. I just think is just absolutely indescribable. Again, we talk about the pop. Obviously, yes, the man was much more than his contributions to pop culture, but I also think that he and that North Star he created for himself are really just shining examples of why pop culture can really matter.
And I think that that's a really important point too, because I know, and I appreciate that people are like, this is a person, he has a family, he is more than Black Panther, but pop culture is culture. That's why the pop stands for popular. That is culture. And we talk about why representation matters, because it is important for kids and other people to see themselves represented on screen. And sometimes it is just like talking about silly jokes about, Captain America's butt or whatever. But it's also, you really can't downplay how important that is, to be able to look up and see yourself and say oh, that is a thing that I can do now. There was a period where if you were a Black kid watching yourself, you could watch, old reruns of The Cosby Show, or you could watch some dude naked in a laundromat on Cops. And that was what you had. And so, there wasn't a lot of great representation. And so, it is just pop culture. It is just comic book movies. But, you really can't downplay how important that is. When you see the way that kids celebrated when they found out that they were going to be able to go get it, there's been so many wonderful videos shot of kids being so pumped that they get to go see this thing. Kids, stories about kids getting their of all kinds of children. Oh, hello. Let's keep talking.
Did we just lose Joe?
I think we just lost Joe.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll wait for Joe. I think you and I have plenty to say in the meantime.
Yeah. But just, these stories about kids who got their Black Panther Halloween costume and slept in it as pajamas for, months. And these are all kids, obviously. It's not just, it's a special place for Black kids, obviously, but it's all kids loved Black Panther and loved watching and learning about Wakanda. And that's also just as important. It is as important for young Black kids to see that, yes, we can do this and we can be this hero. It's as important for everyone to see that, yes, young, Black folks can be this and be more than that. And so, it's, again, he's got a family. He's more than Black Panther, but that's really pretty important. That impact can't be understated.
Yeah. First of all, welcome back, Joe. Two things that stuck out to me. I mean, I think all of us are probably on the same page as having read a lot about him this past week, and some people wrote lovely testimonials from Ryan Coogler to Michael B. Jordan to his longtime agent, and there was that ABC special. So forgive me if I can't remember exactly where I heard which story, but two things that really stuck out in this past week that about the same thing, which is how important it was for him to sort of be positive representation, knowing that a lot of negative representation is out there, which was that at one point, the Hollywood machine is hey, be careful of being typecast. And that he was being told by some people, don't do so many biopics, man. You're going to become biopic guy. But that he felt these are all such important roles, such important people to represent on screen that I don't care if you think I'm biopic guy. I still want to play all these people. And then the other was, I didn't know anything about the All My Children story. Did you guys hear about that? The role he had on All My Children? And he and Michael B. Jordan both played the same part on All My Children. But that, if you look, Chadwick Boseman only played it for a few episodes, and then Michael B. Jordan replaced him. And the reason he only played it for a few episodes is because he's a very young, struggling actor, hasn't almost done anything that is like a nameable credit, and he gets this role, but then he sees it's like, oh, you're a young black gang member and your mom's on crack. And it was like, he's like, no, like, I can't do this. And that, of course, there are people saying, you can't quit. Like, you know, you're finally getting your, you know, yes, All My Children, we can make fun of a soap opera, but he's like nobody at this point. And it's like, no, you should take this role. But he quit it after a few episodes because he's just like, this is not what I want to represent. It's such a cliche. It's so feeding into every stereotype. And yeah, I just thought that spoke a lot to who he was, that so early in his career, he knew, like, I need to put a certain foot forward.
And then also the way that he advocated for the use of actual African accents in Black Panther. That was a great story that was going around as well. People talking about how, like, oh, well, you know, he would have been, you do an English accent, you do a Brit accent because he might have been educated in Britain. And it's like, well, no, this was the idea of Wakanda is that it is a country that has never been colonized. If it's never been colonized, then he doesn't need to be educated in another country. And so why wouldn't, you know, the idea that no, it's important that there be African accents used, because you don't want to show that, like, oh no, like, you know, he's hoity-toity and this really incredibly intelligent, incredibly strong leader, of course, would speak in a British accent. Whereas he's like, no, like, our accents are also, like, important. So I'm going to do that. And that's also huge. It is so huge. And the way that they mixed, Xhosa and other dialects, and the fact that it did, like, people went out and actually started learning about some of these dialects and some of the roots of these, because they took from different places because they wanted this to be something where it was like, you know, not in that way that a lot of people do, where it's like, oh, Africa's one country, but in that way where it's like, well, we want to, if this is going to be a fictional place in Africa, we want lots of people from different African regions to also feel like they could call Wakanda home. And that was also, I think, really important as well.
Yeah, it's, you know, and then sort of just adding to that, the amount of outreach work he was doing, you know, obviously the St. Jude's tours, time he was taking for kids and people suffering. And, you know, I was watching the documentary Howard on Disney Plus. And, you know, just sort of listening to people realize and sort of start to connect the dots after they found out he was sick. I just thought it's so wild just going back and, like, watching how he was talking to, you know, those kids, how he was answering interview questions and things like that. You know, people saying, hey, do you want a Black Panther 2, 3, and 4? And him responding, you know, I'm just trying to live in the moment right now, but if we do them, I want them to be just as special as this is, and you know, stuff like that. I think just speaks to such a rare air of dignity, which again, you know, shown through on the screen with so many of his roles, specifically, obviously, or particularly rather, when he was literally playing a king, you know, in Black Panther. But I just think, just what a rare gentleman. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of levels this loss hits that I don't feel, but I can, you know, personally, but I can still recognize, in my friends, you know, our own Ed Greer, you know, just tweeted, like, we can't have anything. And it just, you know, in response to it, it just absolutely broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. I just think that loss is so incalculable on so many levels. And now I'm just sort of sad rambling about it a little bit.
No, this is the episode where we sad ramble. No, especially especially after you know, I think this was going to be a crushing loss no matter what, obviously. Yes. No matter what, this was going to be, this is going to be what it is. But I think especially coming off of the back of just the 20 of it all too.
Yeah.
It was just like, can we breathe?
Yeah.
Can we have just one break? Can we have a break? Can we have a breath? But on the other hand, one thing I will say, and this is one thing that I'm happy that I think the internet's kind of gotten over their thing of like, you didn't know them, they're just a celebrity, you look like an idiot when you go on there. And it's like, no, man, like, I appreciate that we have places like social media where we can all go to collectively grieve, and we can all just like be okay and being in our feelings, and we can all go to process things like that. Social media, that's the one thing we get right, is that it becomes a place of community. And when that news hit, it definitely felt like a place of community, and it felt like something that I needed, especially now that we're all so separate. Because I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't for Core, like a lot of that still would have happened, but there would have been parties, there would have been get-togethers, there would have been people doing marathons at someone's house, like that would have happened. Sure. And the fact that we weren't able to really do that, but we were able to do it with each other on social media. I'm really grateful for that, and I'm grateful for a lot of the conversations that came out of it. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful that we've all moved past the cynical garbage of, well, you didn't know them, so you can't really mourn them. It's like, no, but like, if someone has an impact in your life, you're allowed to be sad, man. Like, it's cool to be sad sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and not necessarily calling out any kind of Venn diagram, but if you've ever lost your mind on someone because they got the floor plan of the Millennium Falcon wrong, and then you dare say that someone can't feel sad that Chadwick Boseman passed because you didn't know him personally, I don't know what to tell you exactly.
Yeah. No, you do. You just don't want to say it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. The other thing that this sort of really got me thinking about and frustrated about, and I know we'll have some audience members that are like, why are you pushing politics into this? But one of the first things my wife and I talked about when we realized this news was, I'm getting close to 40. I should get tested. I should get that there colonoscopy and get tested for colon cancer. And the fact that we lost someone much more important than me at 43, and that most insurance won't even cover this until you're 45, is absolutely is lunacy to me. Whatever, I'm scraps, but like you take care of your Chadwick Bosemans, man.
It's
not to turn this into a platform, but I think it's so sad that we live in a culture. Obviously he was doing financially well at that point and could probably handle some co-payless health situation, but just culturally, that's 45, and that's recent. It used to be 50. Right. Like culturally, we have it in great. Oh, that's stuff you deal with when you're 50.
I have a family, the only reason why I am able to get mammograms is because of my family history of breast cancer. And even then I had to really fight. I had to fight. And I am not big ballin'. I'm on state insurance. I'm not, and that obviously affects a level of care. But yeah, no, you had to fight and you have to self-advocate. And I'm going to use it as a platform. When people can yell at me all you want, I'll just mute it. Look, I've talked often about the way that doctors, you have to advocate for yourself often as a Black patient, because for some reason everyone takes inner strength in that we don't spontaneously combust every day because racism. They take that to mean we don't feel pain. We feel pain. I've mentioned this before, but an example of that is when I was hit by a bus, I was sent away with a prescription for Advil. You know what I mean? You really have to advocate for yourself. And, it does suck that if colon cancer is I believe one of the top cancers in the Black community.
And didn't they say it's been rising both in the Black community and in younger people, in the past decades?
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, it does. It sucks that we have to kind of, all of it. I mean, and that's all of us, because everyone, healthcare is just, it stinks. But that you have to do that and you have to advocate for yourself. But I guess we all have to start doing that and getting on our self checks and all of those things, because 43 is really, really young. And my Joe Starr isn't Scraps. And I would like you to still be here so we can be doing SJU when we're both 50 and really none of the kids will be watching.
The kids will have transcended YouTube and the internet for some sort of implant.
Coming to you live via your brain. Well, I think it's okay to sort of, we don't need to, push to an hour or anything like that. But I do want to make sure that you guys have both said everything that you feel like you need to say on the show today, to say goodbye, to state your piece, to sort of speak what's on your mind.
For me, just standing out. But I mean, two things, which is just like the amazing performances he gave in the short amount of time. Also, just obviously sort of like the personal dedication he had, and just giving his all with everything. It's funny. My only time I was thinking about this, the only time I interviewed him was like not really interviewing him, was a group thing on a Captain America Civil War set visit. But I remember it's one of those things that now sticks out more, because I remember it was Atlanta, middle of the summer, and it was like breaking 110 degrees. And guys, those superhero costumes, I know they got paid well, but man, it looked miserable that day to watch them running around in those costumes. But every single person we interviewed said, "Oh, Chadwick, he has the worst. He has it the worst. That costume was the most unforgiving, the most there's nothing. There's no mouth exposed, and there's nothing." Yeah. And he was just like encased in it. But everyone was like, and he's just not complaining. He's just doing it. He's just doing his job and not saying, "Oh my God, get me out of this thing," when we all are. So just thought about that the other day, thinking about obviously he was giving his all through all these films. And that's just kind of seemed like the only way he knew how to, Yeah. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. He seems like he doesn't have another gear. Like that was his gear.
It definitely seems it definitely seems to add up to the person that he was. I think it was Coogler said the first time he met him, when they sat in a room to chat about Black Panther a little bit, just how reassuring his presence was, and just how just steady and steadfast and comforting the man was. It definitely seems like he applied that to all aspects of his life and his career, and that is not for nothing. That is certainly something. Danielle.
This one hit really hard. And just amazing legacy. And then all the cliches, man. I mean them, take care of people, be kind, maybe and look, I'm a snark machine. I get it. I like snarks and fart jokes, but maybe it's okay if your first instinct isn't always, the mean one. Maybe it's okay if empathy is your first instinct. And maybe we would all do a lot better if we did that. Now I'm going to go write some stuff making fun of a movie. So
yeah.
Hey, life's about balance, man.
I think that's a good note to go out on, you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks again. Have a good day. Take care of you.